Have you ever wondered why some minds seem to absorb ideas effortlessly, like sponges, while others struggle to hold on to even the simplest thought? In How a Sponge Thinks, Daniela Maria invites us into a fascinating exploration of how memory, creativity, and awareness intertwine to shape the way we think, learn, and grow. Through the metaphor of the sponge, she redefines intelligence, not as something fixed or inherited, but as an organic, evolving process. Our minds, she argues, are not containers for knowledge, but living systems, constantly filtering, connecting, and transforming experiences into meaning. This book challenges us to rethink how we handle information overload, emotional clutter, and the chaos of modern thinking. It reminds us that true memory is not about remembering everything, but about remembering what matters, the ideas, emotions, and lessons that truly shape who we are. So as we dive into this summary, let's not just listen to words. Let's absorb insights. Let's think like sponges, open, curious, and ready to reshape the way we remember and imagine. And if you enjoy discovering books that expand your mind and awaken your creativity, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more inspiring summaries every week. Chapter 1: The Mind as a Living Sponge. Daniela Maria begins with a striking idea. Our minds are not machines that store data. They are living sponges that breathe thought. She invites us to picture the brain not as a hard drive, but as something soft, porous, and alive, constantly absorbing impressions, emotions, and sensations from the world around it. Just like a sponge, the mind absorbs what it touches. Every conversation, every song, every small disappointment leaves a trace inside us. But Maria warns, absorption is not the same as understanding. A sponge can soak up both clear water and muddy water. It's our awareness that decides what to keep and what to release. She calls this process selective soaking. It's the ability to engage deeply with what nourishes our growth and gently let go of what only fills our heads with noise. In her view, memory is not passive, it's a creative act. The mind constantly reorganizing fragments of experience to build a sense of continuity and identity. Maria connects this idea to how we learn and create. The best thinkers, she says, are not the ones who know the most, but the ones who have trained their minds to absorb meaning, not just information. She compares this to how an artist looks at the world, not copying reality, but drawing patterns, emotions, and colors that others might overlook. In a world overflowing with facts and distractions, this sponge mindset becomes an act of mental clarity. It teaches us to filter what enters our mental space, to treat ideas as living organisms, not static data. The first chapter ends with a quiet challenge. If your mind is a sponge, what kind of water are you letting it soak in? Chapter 2: Memory as Emotion, Not Storage. Daniela Maria deepens her metaphor by turning our attention to the emotional side of memory. We often think of memory as a filing cabinet, a place where facts are stored in tidy folders, waiting to be retrieved. But Maria argues that memory behaves far more like a feeling than a file. It breathes, changes, and reshapes itself according to our emotions. She explains that every memory we keep is colored by the emotion we felt when it was formed. That's why two people can live through the same moment and remember it entirely differently, because emotion is the dye that stains memory. Our brain doesn't just store what happened, it stores how we felt about what happened. Maria uses a simple but powerful image: memory as water tinted by emotion. When you pour new experiences into it, the color shifts subtly, sometimes brighter, sometimes darker. And over time, the whole pool of memory takes on a unique hue, the emotional signature of your life. From this perspective, forgetting is not a failure, it's a cleansing. Just as a sponge releases what it no longer needs, the mind lets go of memories that have lost their emotional charge. This, Maria insists, is an act of mental health. We must allow space for new experiences to flow in. She ties this idea to creativity. The most imaginative people aren't those who cling to every detail, but those who transform memory into new meaning. They don't just recall, they recreate. They take what they've lived and filter it through empathy, curiosity, and play. Maria's message is both poetic and practical. If you want to strengthen your memory, strengthen your heart. Learn to feel more deeply, because emotion is the glue that holds memory together. As this chapter closes, she leaves us with a reflection worth pausing on. To remember better, live more vividly. Chapter 3: The Overloaded Mind. In this chapter, Daniela Maria shifts her tone toward the modern world, a place she describes as a storm of information and a drought of meaning. Our minds, like overused sponges, are soaking up more than they can hold. News alerts, social media, endless notifications, all of it presses in, leaving us saturated but not nourished. Maria argues that this overload is not a sign of intelligence, but of imbalance. The human brain evolved to learn through focus, rhythm, and rest. Yet today, we rarely allow it any quiet. She compares it to a sponge left constantly submerged in water. It stops absorbing altogether. The key, she says, is mental wringing. Just as a sponge must be squeezed out to stay effective, the mind needs moments of release, silence, solitude, reflection, to make room for clarity. Without that, ideas blur together, emotions stagnate, and creativity dries up. Maria introduces what she calls the cycle of absorption and expression. Every period of learning must be followed by a period of stillness or creation. Absorb knowledge, then express it through writing, movement, conversation, or art. This rhythm transforms raw input into insight. She also challenges the cultural obsession with productivity. Thinking is not doing, but without thinking, all our doing becomes noise. This gentle line becomes the heartbeat of the chapter, that true growth depends on balance, to take in the world and then to breathe it out in new form. Maria closes with an image that lingers. A dry sponge can't clean. A soaked sponge can't breathe. The wise mind lives between the two. Chapter 4: The Architecture of Remembering. In this chapter, Daniela Maria peels back another layer of her metaphor. She begins by saying that memory is not a warehouse filled with dusty boxes. It's a living architecture, constantly being rebuilt with each thought we have. Every time we recall something, we don't just open an old file, we rewrite it. The brain recreates the memory anew, influenced by our current emotions, beliefs, and experiences. Maria calls this the illusion of stability. We think our memories are fixed, but they're fluid, subtly reshaped each time we visit them. This, she says, is both a blessing and a danger. It allows us to heal from pain by reframing the past, but it also means we can distort reality if we cling too tightly to old stories. She connects this concept to identity. Our sense of self is built from memory, yet that memory is malleable, like clay that never fully hardens. Who we think we are today is the product of countless small edits made over a lifetime. So the question is not, who am I? But who am I becoming as I remember? Maria argues that mastering memory isn't about recall, it's about conscious reconstruction. She encourages us to revisit our past with awareness, to question the old narratives, to soften the harsh memories, to amplify the ones that inspire courage and love. By doing this, she says, we don't erase history, we refine it. She offers a powerful exercise. When an old memory surfaces, don't just relive it, rewrite it. Ask yourself what lesson it carries now and how it can serve your growth instead of your regret. Maria's vision of memory is active, compassionate, and creative. She writes, "The mind is not a museum of what was, it's a studio for what can still be." And with that, she leads us to the deeper question explored in the next chapter. If memory shapes identity, how can we use it to shape the future instead of being trapped by the past? Chapter 5: Memory and the Future Self. Daniela Maria begins this chapter with a paradox that feels both haunting and liberating. Every time you remember, you are already becoming someone new. She explains that memory isn't just a record of the past, it's the raw material of the future self. Each memory we revisit plants a seed for who we are becoming. The way we interpret our past decides how we move forward. Maria invites the reader to imagine time not as a line, but as a circle of reflection. When you look back, you're not only seeing what has been, you're subtly steering what comes next. Your brain constantly rewires itself, forming new emotional associations, and those associations shape behavior, decisions, and even values. This is where hope enters the psychology of memory. Maria says that by consciously reframing our past, we reprogram our expectations of what's possible. The person who once felt powerless can remember resilience instead of failure. The person who was hurt can recall compassion instead of bitterness. In this way, memory becomes a creative act, the art of turning pain into wisdom and repetition into evolution. She compares this process to the ocean's tide. Each wave of recollection washes away what no longer serves us and brings back fragments that still glimmer with meaning. To remember, in her words, is to cleanse the path ahead. Maria suggests practical rituals for cultivating this kind of mindful remembering. Journaling, meditation, or storytelling, not as nostalgia, but as self-guided transformation. Because when we tell our story differently,
we become different. The chapter closes with a vision that ties the whole book together. We are all sponges of experience, absorbing, filtering, releasing, and in that cycle lies our power to grow. What we hold within us is not just the echo of what happened, but the blueprint of what can still be created. Maria leaves us with a final, quiet line. To master memory is to master becoming.
Conclusion: the gentle art of remembering. Daniela Maria closes How a Sponge Thinks with a tone that feels almost like a whisper, calm, clear, and deeply human. She returns to her original image, the sponge, humble yet wise. It doesn't choose what the ocean gives it, but it decides what to hold and what to release. And that, she says, is the secret of a balanced mind. Throughout the book, Maria has shown that memory is not a burden to be carried, but a rhythm to be danced. We absorb experiences, filter them through emotion and reflection, then let them flow outward again as insight, art, kindness, or growth. This continuous movement keeps the mind alive. When we cling to old pain or endless information, we stagnate. But when we learn to release, we make space for the new. Maria believes that wisdom is not about having a perfect memory. It's about having a compassionate one. To remember without judgment, to reinterpret the past with tenderness, and to recognize that forgetting is sometimes a form of healing. In her final pages, she invites readers to live more consciously with their thoughts, to treat the mind not as a battlefield of memories, but as a garden that must be tended with care. Every idea we allow in becomes a seed, every reflection a drop of water, every act of letting go, sunlight. The message she leaves us with is simple but luminous. You are not what you remember. You are what you make of your remembering. As you close this book, she writes, do not try to hold every word. Instead, let its meaning soak in quietly. Let it shift something inside you, however small. Because thinking like a sponge isn't about absorbing everything. It's about learning what truly matters and letting the rest drift away. If this summary touched your thoughts and helped you see memory in a new light, take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who loves to think deeply, and subscribe for more reflections that feed the mind and soul. Let's keep growing, one idea at a time.